Everybody doing this evening? Well, I haven't had a live broadcast in a while. I've been busy. But anyway, tonight we're going to discuss reasons why wars are started. And I think you might find this pretty interesting. And I'm just going to go from, you know, World War One to the present. So, and I'm going to deal with, well, what the U.S. has been involved with. So anyway, it'll be interesting. I mean, with the world around that's going on today, it's just something you always got to keep in mind. What reason are they going to use to start this war? But anyway, I guess we'll discuss it tonight. So stick around. I got to wait a few minutes for people to show up. So if you want to go into the video for about 3 minutes, and then we'll start the subject. But anyway, I'm having fun out here. I'm sure you've seen my shorts the last couple days of the animals out there with us fencing and stuff. I tell you what, I get such a feeling of peace out there. The wide open. I mean, it's great. It's great. I love it. The more open and the more isolated, the better I like it. So, I got another channel, the Lone Wolf Prepper Lives channel. If you want to go check that out, that deals with prepping and stuff. That's my backup channel too, so it's not like I put a lot of information out there, but it's growing. So one thing about my channel now, my channel is growing. The numbers are going up. Subscribers are going up. They're releasing. Hey, Carol, how's it going? They're releasing. They don't got me in the slow lane no more. It's like I'm on the interstate, right? And instead of being able to do the speed limit 70, 80 miles an hour, they got me on the shoulder doing 5 miles an hour like I'm broke down. But it's been a lot better. So, but yeah, I'm sure enjoying it out here. But anyway. So if you like and subscribe, I thank all my new all my subscribers I have. And like I said, I've got quite a few new ones lately. So if you like the content, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share them if you like. I surely appreciate it, and we need all the help we can to get the word out. And that means for any channel you watch, support that channel, because that's just another creator. We take up our time to pass on this information and stuff. But anyway, so like I say, hit like and subscribe and share the content if you would, please. Promote the channel. But let's get down to the subject about the reasons wars start. False flag or excuse. What do I mean by that? And when you deal with false flags, you deal with a false flag a government actually stages, or the government allows conditions to happen where where they were hoping the false flag, so they actually create a situation where that can happen. But let's go back to World War One. World War One, all the countries were armed to a T. Okay, Europe was all armed. I mean, they were spending them. That was during the Industrial Revolution, and militaries were growing in strength and with their ability to cause mass casualties and stuff, and all the militaries were building up, okay? And the people were kind of, there were a lot of hate and discontent with people, especially in Europe. Okay, I'm talking Europe. So it's just like all the governments needed was an excuse so they could go to war. And the excuse they got was obviously the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. That was a spark. It still took, 6 weeks for the war to start, but that was a spark. That's when all the stuff the threat, I mean, there were always threats, but that's when it got hit big time. So that was the excuse, okay? They started the war. And it was going on for a long time, nice and bloody. In Europe, especially since the Russians and the Germans came to, the Germans basically well, the Russians gave up. It was a communist revolution. So the Germans had all these extra troops that were taken uh, to the to the Western Front, where the Allies were going to have to face it. And they need the U.S. in the war. So the U.S., Woodrow Wilson, neutrality, isolation, they needed a reason, okay? And they thought, the one thing we weren't allowed to do is support the war in any shape, way, or form. Germany said that they would sink anything, any type of material coming to England to help them with their war effort. In the United States, oh, we're not sending nothing, right? Hence the Lusitania, right? Cruise ship, German submarine sinks it, 1917. It's the excuse we used to get into the war, right? Germans claimed it was hauling contraband, and we were saying, our government was saying, no, it didn't happen. Well, it comes to find out years and years later when they dove the wreck, yes, there was military supplies going to England to help in the war against the war with Germany. So Germany had every right to sink the Lusitania. Not to say it was right, but that's war. So they create this false flag. They allowed it to happen. That's one thing when these politicians do this, get us in the wars, not only the victims that died because of their false flag they created, but then also all the millions that died fighting the war anyway, or hundreds of thousands. Crazy time. But nobody ever gets. So that's how we got in the war, okay? False flag was allowed to happen, but they just needed an excuse to start World War I, okay? World War II comes around, okay? Nobody wants war. Hey, how's it going? Nobody wants war. The only ones that want war are the ones that are spending a ton of money on their governments for war, like Germany, Japan, the Axis powers. All the rest of us, the U.S. military at the start of World War II was ranked 20th in the world behind Portugal. You know why? Because we are in a country of war, all right? We were a country of peace, and you riled us. We got together. We declared war, and we got a war machine going. But the war machine wasn't ready to really go before when the war was declared. That's what it used to be. But World War II, let's get back to World War II. So nobody really wants war. Okay, the Germans, nobody. Thank you for being good. Well, thank you very much. Meryl's kids. You see my short I did on my dogs. We were out fencing today. Boy, it's like when you have kids and you can sit there and come home and they're all wore out, and you're going to have a good night, nice quiet night, because they're wore out. That's what the dogs are, completely quiet. I don't even hear them walking around. Anyway, back to the war. Hitler wanted war, so he needed a reason. So he had German soldiers. Nobody wants war, I know. That's why I say when the people get behind it, then the government just needs an excuse. Then we got a problem. But if they have to create a false flag like Hitler did to start World War II, the attack on Poland when he dressed up some German soldiers into Polish uniforms and they attacked this German radio station and da-da-da-da-da, like Hitler said, the victors of the war won't be asked how the war was started, okay? So they create that false flag to start World War II, all right? Now, how did we get into World War II? Pearl Harbor, right? Now, some would say that Pearl Harbor was allowed to happen, and I'm one of them that would say that it was allowed to happen. Roosevelt knew everything about it. Churchill knew everything about it. They were reading the Japanese. They knew about it before it happened, okay? But they needed that to happen to get the public behind, because this is the thing. Eventually, we would have been in World War II. Germany on one coast, Japan on the other coast, okay? Roosevelt knew this. See, I'm not saying it was a good idea for it to happen. Maybe they should have been a little bit more honest and we need to go to war. But they needed the public behind it because we were an isolationist country back then. So Pearl Harbor was allowed to happen. Allowed to happen. I mean, it's amazing none of the carriers were in port, right? Just a bunch of outdated battleships. But anyway, so we entered the war. Okay, so now we saved the world's ass twice. But one thing about Japan attacking us, you can't say we weren't messing with Japan by all the embargoes we were doing and strangulating that country where the country felt it had no other choice. But Pearl Harbor was allowed to happen to enter us into World War II. Okay. And then, of course, after Pearl Harbor, the government had the people behind it. Boom. We were at war on December 8th. All right? Korea, well, I don't think North Korea and the Chinese thought the United Nations and America was going to get involved, but that's really nothing big. Let's get into Vietnam. People don't want war. What do they have? The Gulf of Tonkin. Now it's come up that was fake. No politician got in trouble for the victims of that war that went over there and fought that war that should have never died. Came back, ones that did come back all messed up. Bye, Moraes kids. Have a good night. But nothing happens to these people that cause all this destruction. Like days of infamy are brought to us by our leaders of the country, not the citizens of the country. Okay? But that's another war. Nothing happens. Okay? Then we get to 1991 or 1990. And we've been at war ever since 1990. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, we went over there and, staged for 4 months. And, just like I say, you had 5,000 Iraqis surrendering to a single Humvee because there's like, please stop the bombs from falling, whatever it takes. See, we actually went there to fight a war and won the war. And it was over. But then we stayed there. Anyway, and then we get to 2001. Okay. We've been at war with terrorists for many, many, many years, since the 60s, 50s. A long time, okay? And the thing with terrorists, when we dealt with them when I was in the Marine Corps, I always knew that they were eventually going to get us because they hated us. Flat out hated us. See, this is the thing. They were at war with us. I knew that. But the average civilian didn't realize that these terrorists were at war with us. And I got out of the military and Marine Corps in 1994, and I always told everybody, they're going to get us big. The terrorists are going to hit us big one day. They're going to hit us big. Okay? And I always got told I was crazy, never happened in the United States. It can never happen. Pre 9/11, anybody ever remember them times? Nothing was ever going to happen here. It happened everywhere else around the world. Okay? That's when that happened. I wasn't surprised. I'm watching on TV as it's unfolding on the news in the morning, and everybody else getting excited. I'm saying, what are you getting excited about? I knew this was going to happen for 7 years. But anyway, was it allowed to happen? Did America help? I think America helped by not doing nothing. It's strange, but see, back then, pre 9/11, you could take over a plane with a box cutter. Especially if you know how to fly the plane, you slit the pilot's throat, done it over with. Americans were soft and scared. and he tried to hijack a plane after 9/11, you got gang tackled by everybody in the cabin. But anyway, then they got the war against terrorists out loud. They got their Patriot bill passed. Now, remember how you felt after 9/11? Same way they felt after Pearl Harbor. I mean, your patriotism. Remember how all of Congress stood on the steps and took pictures, and they sang "God Bless America," didn't they? Okay. You're welcome. I try to be a good person. My motto is try to be a better person than I was yesterday. So always have a goal every day. Always try to do a good deed every day, even if it's opening up a door for somebody. A good deed, if it's paid for, is no longer a good deed. How you get paid for a good deed is you're making the person day better that you're doing a good deed for. By the way, back to the subject. Okay. Okay, so they got their control over us. See, I say the government's at war with the people too, and this is the first step of control. I mean, we all thought the Patriot Act was going to be used against terrorists, to come to find out that it's been extended and it's been used against American citizens. Anyway, so they had their reason to have our war against terrorists, okay? Now, where has that led us? And then it got us into Afghanistan. That was the excuse to get us into Afghanistan. When we should have been attacking Saudi Arabia, we're attacking Afghanistan. And let's not get into the trillions of dollars spent there just to leave with a tail between our legs and leave $85 billion in military supplies. This is one thing I don't understand, okay? I was in the military. I was in a deploying unit. The gear you take with you is the same gear, whether it be vehicles, it don't matter what it is. It's the same stuff you have in the state. It's not only the people that move as a unit, it's all the equipment. You deploy with that equipment and you come home with that equipment. So tell me how these units deployed with that equipment, but didn't come home with it. But they get issued all new stuff when they got back to the States? I don't understand. That's just a question I have from being in the military. But they got their reason to go to war with in Afghanistan. Let's destroy another country. And Americans were behind it. I mean, we had been attacked. Americans finally got woke up and they wanted some revenge. So that was that war. Okay? Now, we got a couple wars in this country brewing. We got international war. You were in the military. Yeah, I was a United States Marine from 1985 to 1994. I like to call myself Ronald Reagan Marine. I like that. A Ronald Reagan Marine. And I got to travel the world and see a lot of bad stuff in the world. That's one thing when you travel the world in the military, you know, especially as a jarhead, you don't get to see the good parts of the world. Okay? Most of the time you spend on shore is, you know, not on a leave in port. Okay? But anyway, we got a couple wars brewing. We got our civil unrest that's coming, okay? And the other side is just looking for excuses to get bloody. Well, the conservative side is like, can we just all get along? I want to live my life, be able to mow my yard tomorrow, and I'm not going to be able to do that if we start getting in each other's garbage, okay? So that war, you got people on both sides that want that war. They're just looking for the excuse. And if the right thing happens, where a lot of people can get behind it, you know, some situation occurs, And I'm not talking false flag. I'm just talking some naturally occurring situation, especially with the heated environment we got in this country now. It's not going to take much. But there may be, not the government, but civilian entities that are going to try to start a false flag. The race war that everybody wants. What did Charles Manson do to try to create a race war? Killing people? Trying to create his own little false flag? All these people trying to start the race war in this country. We got other problems besides somebody else's skin color. Believe me, you got a lot bigger problems. Okay? But that war just needs an excuse. Well, let's talk about internationally. People aren't for war no more. People are tired of the Ukraine. We're tired of paying for all this stuff. And Trump hadn't stopped none of that yet either. But people are done paying for this stuff. We don't want war. So they're going to have to create a false flag or allow a situation to happen that will be the false flag. Hey, Leo, say hi. Hi, Leo. But they need to do the false flag because we ain't got the people behind it. So I don't know what that's going to be. Hey, good night, Carol. Have a good night. Sorry I was so late, but I'm working late, so. Hi, Leo. Anyway, but what are they going to do? The thing is, when whatever happens, look at it twice. Think about it a bunch of times before you come up with your opinion on it. Okay? Because if you're thirsting for war, you won't be thirsting for it if it's at your front door. Okay? Anyway, I just don't know what, as messed up as the world is, international stuff bothers me, but I know Iran's not going to nuke the U.S. As long as we can get along with Russia and China and keep that straight, I'm more worried about the civil unrest in this country. And if this country goes out in full-out civil war, we will have Chinese troops landing in California like the Pentagon was talking about yesterday. If we don't keep our shit together, being the supposed high man on the king of the hill in the world, if we don't keep our shit together, all these countries that we've been, trying to dictate to are going to come at us. It's very important that the U.S. keeps their marbles and we all get along and stop this division and stop listening to politicians. Anyway, so we're not for an international war, but a lot of us are for settling and fixing this country's problems. Anyway, we'll see what happens, but that's just it. When the government wants war, they're going to have to stage a false flag. When the people want war, the government just needs an excuse. Okay? And we're set between false flag and excuse now. Just depending on what war you want to look at. Anyway. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I tell you what. The reason I do my shorts, I may not even agree with it sometimes. But the reason for the shorts is to get people to think past their prejudices, okay? Past your biases. Get you open your mind. And then my other stuff, it's entertainment too. My horses and my dogs, I'll do some more videos. I go back. Right now I'm out here fencing. I go to ranches and I do fencing because the ranchers can't get nobody to do the pasture fencing. I love it out there. And that's, job security. Nobody do a job that nobody wants to do. You can pretty much charge what you want, and you got job security. Anyway, but when I go back this weekend to my house, my home farm, hopefully it's not blowing so bad. Have you seen your dogs? Yeah, they're right here laying. But maybe I can do a video riding my horses. But anyway, it's been windy here. It's finally calmed down. This was the first day in about 30 days for sure where the wind must have been under 15 miles an hour. But we're just getting the wind, and it's just feeling all those storms that are going east of us. Shoo! Anyway, but that's all I got for this evening. Appreciate everybody being here. Like I say, help spread the word. Support these small channels, because we have stuff to say too. And it helps with the algorithm. And like I say, they try to smash us down. I never thought one man's opinion was ever going to hurt me. One man's opinion, I can listen to it and accept it and analyze it. But if I shut it down, I'll never hear it, right? Anyway, like I say, if you shut somebody up, you just limit your knowledge. You limited your knowledge. If you're afraid to hear, then you're limiting your knowledge. Anyway, that's all I have. Everybody have a great evening. Appreciate everybody being here. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night. This is Tom. I am out.